this is it, y'all. This is the end game. Today's the day we reign in a new champion. Dwellings of Eldervale was my #1 favorite game of all time. After 100 plays and playing with every single faction across all player counts 1 through 5, I couldn't imagine another game taking its place. So how can you take a game like that and improve on the production quality, improve on the mechanics, and just make the overall gameplay experience that much better? Does a game like that even exist? This right here is Andromeda's Edge, my new #1 board game of all time. So even if Andromeda has built upon the foundations of Dwellings of Eldervale, it's taken the best parts of it and improved upon everything. This is a game where you're launching spaceships out to collect resources, fight raiders, battle other players, build up your developments, and advance along different specialties called progress tracks to score big points. On your turn, you launch one ship out to different planets to collect resources, or you're gonna go to different alliance bases and do different effects like buying different modules for your space station or building up more ships. And then, once you run out of ships, you bring them all back and then activate a slew of different modules at your space station. The goal is to get the most points, and once someone passes the terminus marker, that's gonna trigger the last and final round. You can set it to a short, medium, or long game. But in today's video, I wanna focus on the reasons why this game has blitzed through the ranks to become my #1 and add in some comparisons of Dwellings along the way. Let me ask you this. Why do you want to keep playing a game over and over again? It's because you want to experience something new. You want to try something out to see what unfolds when you play the game. AE lets you do that like no other. You have so many different factions to choose from, 18 different factions, and what I think is so well done is that these factions can make a very big impact on the game, but even if you don't use their abilities, they don't lock you into playing a certain way. Just because the Flamekeepers focus on keeping peace with their friendly science vessels doesn't mean you're bad in combat. Just because the Funganar Spore Gods focus on scrapyard play, it doesn't mean you need to keep killing off your own ships. What I'm saying is Andromeda's Edge gives you, the player, creative control. It gives you the starting blocks, but you can do whatever you want with it to play your own way. It's not just that though, I want to keep playing again and again because I want to see how I can build up my engine differently or how I can advance up the progress tracks differently too. But unlike Dwellings though, AE's combat is way more rewarding for the winner and losers of the fight. It's way more fleshed out, and after playing AE for 12 times now across all player counts, I can definitively say, this hurts my soul a little bit to say, but I'm gonna admit it, okay? AE's combat is better than Dwellings, flat out. Shields keep heavy cruisers and some unique ships in play, so it'll take 2 different battles to take out your strongest units, which is very rewarding because no one likes having their best upgrades taken down so easily. In Dwellings, it feels so good to summon a dragon, but then it gets taken down in one fight, and that's not the best feeling. Here, you have heavy cruisers and some fighters with shields, which will take 2 hits before they die, so at least that makes it feel so much better when you summon these strong, heavy-hitting units. One thing I also really wanted for Dwellings that's now here is upgrading your units, and now that's possible because at the beginning of the game, you are dealt these random card upgrades for each ship. That right there, combined with your faction abilities, 2 faction abilities, makes the gameplay so rewarding. I can't even imagine playing Dwellings without being able to upgrade your units, and on top of all of that, AE now introduces targeting. So you get rewarded for investing well into combat. That is the best feeling because when you bring in more ships into battle, if I'm gonna yank all my ships over to fight over here, then I better get rewarded for that. If I have 3 ships in battle, I can no longer roll a 2 or 1. I'm just gonna re-roll those, and then that gives me incentive to fight more often and to bring in more of my army to fight through. But Tim, what if you have a targeting of 5? Don't you spend all day re-rolling? It doesn't take that long, and trust me, especially with my gaming group, by the time I finish rolling my dice anyway, they're still gonna be taking their turn, so it's gonna be fine. Okay, but on a more serious note though, it'll honestly take you like less than 30 seconds to do those re-rolls, and to get a targeting of 5, it doesn't happen that often in battle because you do have to invest a lot. Not only do you have to bring in a ton of ships, but if you need to have the right tactics cards to do all that. So the frequency of that doesn't happen often, so I don't think you have to worry about that too much. Here's the bottom line. Targeting makes combat so much more fun, and it makes the old system of combat feel so much more outdated. So I can't even imagine playing this without targeting anymore. Now, as much as I've been praising Andromeda's Edge nonstop, I still try to critique games all the same, and that doesn't mean Andromeda's Edge is perfect. Actually, there's one thing that does bother me about this game, and it actually retained that same issue from Dwellings, and that is with the Raiders. So as cool as they are, I really wished that the Raider rewards were better, because what I've seen across all my gameplays so far, every single one, what I've consistently seen is that most people tend to not fight the Raiders directly. Instead, they fight them out of convenience. Like they want to go to an alliance base to perform a specific action, or they want to go collect a specific resource, and then a Raider is attacking them because of that. That's the main reason why people are going for Raiders, because you do have to invest a lot into fighting them. And initially, it doesn't sound like a lot, even though rewards are pretty impactful. Like if I were to fight the space octopus, the Space Kraken fights with 5 dice. It is one of the strongest Raiders in the game. Imagine what we would need to take down a monster like that, right? So you invest all these ships into there, you use tactics cards, you bring your rolls up, you kill it, and then you realize that you go up 1 space on the industry track as a reward, and then you also go up 1 space on the supremacy track, which again, like I'm not trying to say that those rewards aren't powerful, they're really, really strong, but we all want immediate gratification, and those rewards are delayed long-term effects. And on top of that, if you're on a space which doesn't do much for you, like if I were to go up this space and then the event marker goes up, and then I go up here on supremacy, I would only gain 1 point, and then the event moves forward, which doesn't really help me unless it triggers the end point, the end of round scoring. Here's what I'm saying. I wished that you can still dominate Raiders or some way absorb their power. I think that would be so cool. Because imagine taking down the UFO, which normally abducts your leaders, and then because you took it down, because you're the one that invested into taking down an epic Raider like this, you now gain its ability temporarily. So if AE does an expansion later on and they have a new deck of Raider cards that let you absorb the Raiders' powers, that right there would make this game so perfect for me. But without that, it doesn't feel as good defeating Raiders and investing to beat them. I think those two things kind of tie in together. I feel like people would be more incentivized to fight the Raiders if they had better rewards. And also, I really want to use their powers because I think it would be the coolest thing. I think the problem in people avoiding Raiders and not feeling as good in defeating them and gaining those rewards is it doesn't feel like it's worth the investment. But what is worth the investment this time, however, are the new tactics cards, which are pretty much Magic cards version 2.0. This is a super nostalgic point for me because it really does feel like Yu-Gi-Oh! In Yu-Gi-Oh! There's so much play interaction, and that card game has always been my bread and butter because there's this back and forth going on. And I feel like that foundation is here with the tactics cards. I love it when everyone has surprises and secret plans because it matters when people have a hand of tactics cards. They are so impactful. If someone has a hand of 5 cards, I'm not gonna go out and attack them because I know they got something planned and I'm gonna avoid them before they absolutely destroy me. Andromeda improves upon the magic cards and Dwellings big time because Dwellings often had magic cards that had a high requirement cost, and sometimes you can't even play the prerequisite if the element isn't in play. This time, the only prerequisite is the timing of when you play the cards. These cards are my favorite part about the whole game because it really keeps everyone on their toes and you find the most interesting combos to pair up with your faction. Oh, we're about to fight? Psych, it's a trap, which is actually a card by the way. I'm gonna play that one. Now, everyone is gonna damage one of their ships in the active region and then I draw a tactics card. Oh, did you fight a Raider and just get wrecked just now? Well, guess what? I made a dark alliance with them, so I go up supremacy because you lost. Oh, more of a passive player, you say? Maybe your engine's all beat up and you're trying to catch up to everyone else? Then bam, desperate repairs. You get points for all your ships, plus you get a free repair on top of that. Bottom line, I just love how dynamic these cards are now. They give you so many different gameplay options, and I just love being able to get a whole hand of new cards. And on top of that, it's even more rewarding when you time it perfectly and have no hand of cards, and then boom, you go up on the civilization track and then refill your hand up to 6 cards, and now you are a complete threat to the entire game. So let's go ahead and zoom out for a second and ask this general question, which is, what makes board games overall continuously fun for me? And at the end of the day, it has to be the high player interaction. That's why I love playing games so much. And how AE does this continuously is that it always unites and brings all the players together. You can play as however you want. I can turtle over here if I want to and stay on the side of the galaxy, or I can be in the forefront of the fight, or I can just focus on returning my ships and building out my own engine. But no matter what, we're all gonna come back together when the events unfold, because then we all score together and we resolve it together. A new raider pops out, we score points, and then now everyone's on your radar consistently. So like, coolest part, this is the game I wished I had when I was a kid, because I would stay up so late playing this one. Not that I don't already do now, but I know that as a kid, I would have been all over this one, because when battle takes place, you don't have to join it, but everyone has the option to jump at light speed, hyperdrive, whatever you want to call it, to accelerate to that fight. I love that you have a heavy cruiser that you can spend energy with, and then boom, you're in the fight as well. So everyone is just always involved, and they have the option to not be involved as well. So it caters to so many different types of players in that sense. As big as Andromeda's Edge is, it feels like everyone's so far apart and close at the same time. If you're familiar with area control games, you know that sometimes you have to spend an entire turn to move little bits of your army halfway across the map. But here, Andromeda's Edge solves that by giving you the jump ability, by giving you range, and by giving you the Raider Strike. The last reason why I love AE so much, I mean, technically it's not my last reason, I can go on about this like all day, but the last reason for now is that the toy factor and just the overall table presence of AE isn't just a gimmick. That was the thing I was scared about the most, I'll be honest. But the fact that it has these really cool developments, and then you have leaders that can slot in with all of these developments together. And on top of that, these developments are gonna be built upon your ships in the game to slot in like this, and you score points for it and everything. The fact that everything about this toy matters in the game because you score points for the leaders, you need to have a transport there in order for you to build a development on top. You gotta pay the resources. Like, there's so many gameplay mechanics involved to make this toy factor worth it. It's not just for looks, even though it is a very, very beautiful game. Put everything together, it brings out the kid in me because you have all these really, really cool epic raiders. You got a beehive with hornets being sent out. You have a UFO abducting leaders. There's an ancient brain. The theme, the aesthetic, if I just walk by and I see a game like this, I wanna know everything about it. I wanna know what this game is about. I wanna know what you're doing, and I wanna get in on this session too. The dwellings in Dwellings of Eldervale, they were cool. Like, I say that now because now I just experienced something different, because the dwellings here in Andromeda all have unique abilities. The fact that you have a city and a spaceport and a war factory, all of these have unique abilities that you can use one time. I love that they all introduce a new factor to the game, and it adds more depth to the overall gameplay versus a dwelling, which didn't have any of those abilities at all. Show me another game that has this level of table presence, that has these really awesome toy factors and epic golden miniatures and developments. Show me a game that does that and still ties in really fun board game mechanics overall. It's so hard to find something like that. Now for my solo gamers out there, I got you covered. Honestly, when it comes to solo games, if I don't have a reason to come back to a solo game, then it gives me less incentive to actually play through the solo mode. For dwellings, you had the Ghosts of Eldervale, and they were cool, but at the end of the day, it's just you fighting the same thing over and over. And that's fine if you want to experiment with the factions, if you want to experiment with the combos, like that's there. But it's also here in Andromeda stepped up times 10, because now you get to fight against 9 different Unity commanders with level 1, 2, and 3 Unity commanders, and the stronger ones will have unique abilities as well. So it's not just you fighting the same thing over and over. Plus, now I have a reason to come back because I want to be able to make it through level 1, 2, and 3 and be able to fight through all these commanders versus fighting the same ghost over and over again. The ghosts were hard in Eldervale, but here the Unity commanders are very, very strong and extremely challenging. I really love how the higher level commanders even have unique abilities too, because it feels way more fleshed out than the ghosts, literally. The second reason why I love Unity so much more, to be honest, Unity is but the reason why I love solo mode here so much more is because you're spending way more time actually playing the game instead of regulating it. I cannot stand when solo games have so much regulation and control over what they're doing instead of you being able to play it through the game. All you do here in solo mode is roll a die, and then it's gonna tell you which tier to activate and which ship to send out. The Unity probe is exactly like the Watcher and Dwellings, where it follows you. So Unity has a strangely good balance at letting you do your own thing while interrupting your actions, and I really think it's because these cars are divided up into 3 levels. That plus raiders invading and events triggering often, there's just so much action happening. I kid you not, every game that I played with Andromeda so far multiplayer, I've always played the short game on 50. I think that's a perfect sweet spot for me. But when I faced Unity, literally last night when I should be working on scripting out and figuring out this whole shoot, last night, I kept extending it again and again to make it a long game because I was so close to beating Unity and I did not want the game to end. I just wanted to keep playing. Lastly, battle in solo mode is so freaking electrifying. I'm gonna put up this picture because it's a real picture I took when I was fighting this. So Unity launched a ship over to the Monolith of Ancients, and then the Space Kraken came over and invaded that area. I jumped my ship over there. All of us are rolling 5 to 6 dice together. And then in this game, Unity also has a diplomacy deck on their own, which is super unique compared to the Ghosts. So when they drew a card, they drew something called Relentless Barrage, which gives them an extra die in battle. Unity rolled their dice, the Space Kraken rolled their dice, I rolled my 6 dice, and somehow I managed to pull a win from that. And it was the most epic fight ever. And that right there is for solo mode. Bottom line, solo mode has way more layers than Dwellings. It has multiple levels of commanders for you to face against, so it gives me a reason to come back. And lastly, it has a way more fleshed out battle system, so battle is way more interesting than Dwellings. It really is like a Ghost of Eldervale 2.0. This is it. Andromeda's Edge is officially my new #1 board game of all time. Yeah, I'll go ahead and address the elephant in the room, the question that you have all been asking. Is Andromeda's Edge better than Dwellings of Eldervale? Yes. It hurts me to say that a little bit, okay? Because I couldn't imagine, like I said before, I couldn't imagine another game replacing Dwellings for me. But after, last time I did a video like this where I compared the two last year, I had the prototype version of AE. But now, after spending many months with it, I spent what, 3 to 4 months with it. I played it across all player counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I played it 12 times now with 12 different factions. After all of that experience, I can definitively say that on a game night, I will reach towards Andromeda's Edge, and I've never reached for Dwellings ever since AE has landed at home. And that is difficult, but you know, it is what it is. I thought initially it was because I'm in like the honeymoon phase of any brand new shiny game, but after so much time with it, I just feel like tactical operations, targeting, range, the jump ability, the new type of engine that you're building, all of those make the gameplay so much more fun. You even have asymmetric dwellings, aka developments, which adds so much more depth to gameplay. Not gonna lie, I do miss the ability to dominate monsters, but fingers crossed that they do add an expansion that allows you to somehow gain the ability of these raiders in the future. That would be so awesome. I love getting new random unit abilities and being able to upgrade your units during the game. It's what I always wanted in Dwelling, so the fact that AE gives you the option to do that, to strengthen your units, is another big win there. The card play in AE is so much more rewarding than Dwellings because you just have so many more impactful moments, and there are way less dead cards in the game too. Every card matters, and honestly, the amount of cards people have, that matters too. So it keeps you on your toes about what everyone's doing. I also think you're gonna love how you build out your engine in AE, especially if you enjoy engine building games, because unlike Dwellings, where you can only activate 1 card at a time, AE lets you trigger an entire row, and then you can even add energy to puzzle piece which ones and which resources you can generate. When I see this game, I see a box of nostalgia. I see the inner kid in me wanting to play this game with his cousins till 4 a.m. in the morning, just staying up late and doing nothing but having endless fun playing this nonstop. I think it's such a fun experience with my friends now because it caters to so many different types of players. It's not that Dwellings of Eldervale is bad now, it's far from that. It's more so that Andromeda's Edge has taken the best parts of Dwellings and improved upon it. So even if Dwellings of Eldervale is no longer my #1 favorite game of all time, you know what? It had its time to shine for 3 years in a row. But now it's time for us to usher in a new champion. My #1 board game of all time, the best board game ever, I'll say it, Andromeda's Edge. If you made it here to the very, very end, go ahead and comment a Wolfpack emoji down in the comments below to celebrate the Wolfpack's brand new #1 board game of all time. I can't wait for you all to experience this game and to play as the #1 faction, the Wolf Guardian Howlers. They're still the #1 OP faction, right, Junior? Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. #1. Woo! I howled for you there. You happy? Okay. Oh, where's the key? I almost forgot this morning, you know that? Am I sweaty on camera? So sweaty. No, that's okay. I just my shirt. Okay. She's like, no, you're not doing that. Nice, those smooth camera movements though. Whoa, whoa. I felt that stability.